Thanks, Chris. My name's Miles Lochhead. I actually worked for council for 17 years, so I've had a lot to do with local government. I'm pretty much retired now, and my current pursuit is providing a new aquatic centre for the Highlands, as Mittagong Pool has been closed for the last 8 years because of consistent flooding. So that's another one of my passions. But as an early adopter, I bought and contracted out the first direct drill seeder in the Highlands in the 80s. Around the same time, I helped establish the first land care group in the Highlands, and then went from agriculture, as I was a farmer in those days, to working in local government, and we developed at Wingecarribee Council the first local government resource recovery centre in Australia. So they're all early adoption things that were very challenging, have its tolls, I have to say. I met through a friend, somebody that I hadn't met before this morning, and they said they'd been off-grid for, Kim, is it 40 years? Kit, about 40 years. So I'm not an early adopter in terms of solar. We started our journey in 2010. And why? It's a no-brainer. It made sense to me to look at alternatives, to change our thinking in relation to energy use, just like we did with the waste system. It made a lot of sense in 2010, and obviously for Kit it made a lot of sense 30 or 40 years ago. Probably didn't have poles going to his place, so it had to do something to create the energy. We've done lots of things over the years to improve our energy efficiency and become better at using energy and resources, but it was a no-brainer in 2010. So we're based in Mittagong on the northern side of Oxley Drive. In 2010 we put in a measly 2.3 kilowatts of panels. I think it was James said people start small, and we started small. I would have loved to have put 2 or 3 times the number of panels in those days, but the cost per kilowatt of solar in the 2000s was a lot more than it is now. So we limited ourselves to 2 kilowatts. In 2017, through an organisation that I was very involved with, WinZero, it used to be CanWin, we established a community bulk buy program and managed to support 80 installs in the Highlands. As part of that, we upgraded our system to nearly 6 kilowatts. And at the same time, we bought the 13.5 kilowatt hour battery. It's 7 years old now, has a very low degradation, and it's still being discharged 365 days of the year, and has less than 4% degradation. So that was a really good option for us in 2017, but still only had less than 6 kilowatts. As an early adopter and advocate for renewable energy, 2 years ago, we reinvested in our solar system and increased to nearly 18 kilowatts. We went 3-phase, and at the same time, we redid all our doors and windows at home, all double glazed. I don't know if you missed it on the first slide, but we had an energy assessment around that time, and we got a 10-star rating. So we've done as much as we can to conserve energy and to be smart in the way we do things. As part of upgrading 2 years ago, we bought an EV too, so that's been part of that journey. Now, that's what our roof looked like in 2010. The first small system on the right. Then in 2017, we upgraded. On the right-hand side, there's a little solar thermal hot water thing that has been going for 14 years, and I think Adam mentioned the cost of energy these days, but hot water being the big one. We spend between 10 and 15 cents a day on hot water, and that's because it's cheap, close to being free, and so we use a lot more hot water than most people do. We've got a solar thermal hot water system, and the highest tech option to keep our resistance hot water tank hot, and that's the button in the shower that you press when you feel the hot water getting cold. So that thing, nearly 15 years old, never missed a beat. It's a fantastic option to preheat your water. There's a lot of other options these days, heat pumps, everyone's probably heard about those, but that for us has been a tremendous energy saver. Then we moved to the system that we've got now, and as I said, it's close to 18 kilowatts. Our installer said all we have to do is convince the treasurer in our household that it's cost effective. So he said, I can do that, and I could even put them on that south roof and show you that they save money. So it is a no-brainer. They do solar panels, and renewable energy at home is a very efficient way of transitioning to a new energy system, and we've discovered that very much firsthand. I've got some figures here. I A lot of others have skipped through their slides to keep to time. I'll do the same thing here. Summarising this slide, we've got the 18 kilowatts on the orientations, east, west and north roofs. We chose back in 2017 to go all Australian, so we put Tindo panels on. When we upgraded a couple of years ago, we put M Square, another Australian manufacturer. We've got all Australian on the roof and paid a little bit more for buying Australia, but they've all been up there with the best solar panels you can get these days in the market. The second part is about retailing. Ty and others have talked about gentailers, people that generate and retail. Well, I could speak for 2 hours on my experiences going through Origin Energy in the early days to Power Shop and then getting out of Power Shop when they were bought by Shell. Now we're with Amber Electricity, and I'll talk a little bit about Amber towards the end of this talk. But it's been a journey, and as Adam said, saving one of his clients $6,000 just by asking the question. I think we all need to keep the retailers honest, hold them to account, because if you don't ask the question, they'll take advantage of you and they will charge you what they can get away with. At the moment, we haven't paid for electricity for 15 years. We've paid for all of our systems, hardware, contract work. We've generated all our own electricity. We've got about $1,000 credit in our retail account. What we invested to get there would have been about an average car in today's terms. The amount of energy that's gone into the equipment we've got is minimal compared to the benefit that we've achieved. And look, what do we do in the future? I don't think we need to generate more electricity. I'll talk a bit about the virtual energy network. Ty also talked about VPPs. They're just like hungry giants trying to get as much out of you as they can, but we've got a thing called a VEN, which is much better than a VPP. I don't think we really need any more electricity on our roof. If we had 2 EVs, we could charge that quite easily with the capacity we've got, and we've got a lot of surplus that goes into our stationary battery, into our EV, and a lot goes back into the grid. We've been receiving returns for that over the years. A couple of the speakers have already mentioned the jargon. There's acronyms to boot in this game, but you all know what a kilowatt hour is. We've generated 123 megawatt hours of electricity starting from our 2.2 kilowatt system through our 6 kilowatt to now our 18, and we're doing about $6,000 at 27 cents a kilowatt hour per year now with our new system. So you can just do the maths on that, how much we'll, in theory, make out of our current system. As I said, it's going to pay for itself time and time again. We're a miserly user. When we first started this journey, we were using about 4 to 5 kilowatt hours a day. We did have gas heating, we do have gas cooking, but we were very, very conservative in our energy use. When we started getting more options with solar, we increased to 7 kilowatt hours a day average. Leading up to our last install and our EV, we were about 10 kilowatt hours a day, mostly because we had got rid of gas and also we had free energy, if you like, and we tend to be less conservative than we used to be. But now with an EV, our average kilowatt hours per day is about 20. Look, at 27 cents, that's about our usage would cost us over that period $14,000, but we generated twice that amount through our solar systems. Starting small but big now. We've got a Powerwall battery, that's a Tesla, and it's charged 18.7 megawatts and discharged 15.7 megawatts in its life, and that's over 7 years, less than 4% degradation. People that heard me speak a few weeks ago would have heard me say 2 to 3%. It changes all the time, so I go for the highest value that they give us through a diagnostic tool I use, and it's saying 4% at the moment, but sometimes it goes down, so I don't really know how long our Powerwall is going to last. Adam and James both spoke about returns. We were getting 66 cents a kilowatt hour for our feeding back to the grid in 2010. That went down like that, the Titanic, pretty soon after everybody, or the bureaucrats realised that they'd gone too far and it was costing the taxpayer too much. Our last bill was about 6 cents because there's been a lot of sun and wind lately. With our retailer, Amber, we're averaging about 16 cents a kilowatt hour for what we put back into the grid. We don't put as much back these days because we charge our car and use a lot of energy rather than put it back because our wholesale retailer charges wholesale prices. So when there's a lot of solar available. If we were putting energy back into the grid, we'd be paying a penalty. In other words, paying for it. Doesn't sound very sensible, but it works. I said we bought a Tesla in 2021. We upgraded that to a Model Y. Was it last year? Yeah, last year. Overall, we've done 44,000 kilometres in those two cars. Very efficient machines. There's three options out there. There's a lot of really good electric cars around these days, but to achieve 148 watt hours per kilometre, that's miles per gallon if you like, is a pretty efficient machine. I worked this out a while ago, so it's roughly 40,000 kilometres, but it would have cost us over $4,000 in fuel if we had been running a petrol car. Our out-of-pocket for our electric cars, and that includes 2 screws in the tyre, puncture repairs, is less than $200. That's when we've had to go to an EV charging station to charge our vehicle and pay for it. Mostly our charging is free because it's at home. We also get a lot of credits for referring people to buy cars, so our supercharging is also, at the moment, still free. One of the things that I've noticed, especially leading up to the SunCrowd program, which we ran in 2016-17, is that 14% of systems either aren't working at all or aren't working to their capacity. So it's really essential. If people want an easy life and don't want to think about what's happening, don't want to get stressed about whether their system's working or they're getting the most efficiency out of it, sometimes these things aren't for you. However, they will save you money. So if you're interested in going on holidays and saving money, it does benefit. The best benefit is when your system's working properly. We use a whole lot of systems, but this gauge sits on our bench top at home. I've been using it for 12 years. Doesn't miss a beat. You can either set it to show how much you're generating or how much you're using. That tells me at a glance that our system is working okay. There are other ways that you can do that, and I've done this with people that have similar sized systems to ours in the Highlands. And here's an example of myself and a mate, Rod, who lives in Barrels. The 2 graphs you can see are from the Tesla app, and they show the generation, which is the big bell curve. The green is what went into the battery, the blue is what's gone to load, in other words usage, and the red is charging cars. All this is done through algorithms, done automatically, so I don't have to do a thing. The smarts in our car, the smarts in our battery know when the solar is there. This is a brilliant day with no clouds. That's when you get those beautiful bell curves. All the energy is used efficiently, and we don't use anything from the grid. And in fact, that day, Rod sent 37 kilowatt hours to the grid, and we sent 14. A lot of people ask me questions about, should I go solar? What are the benefits? And the answer is there's many, and they're varied. To ask me for advice on one particular system is challenging because things change so quickly. But people say, should I put, the installers will tell you, fill up your roof, put as much solar on as possible. That's what we did. We've got 18 kilowatts on there now. And we've got 3-phase to back that up. Most standard systems are between 6 and 8 kilowatts now. In terms of orientation, you can see 14th of May 2024, Rod's generation kilowatt hours per installed kilowatt was 4.11, ours was 3.06. In November, which is a different time of the year naturally, a lot more sun, Rod's was 5.55 and ours was 6.5. So our orientation suits a better summer generation, Rod's suits a better winter generation. If you've got a system, it's really important to have monitoring to let you know that it's working properly. I've only got a few more minutes to go, so I better motor through. As far as monitoring goes, this is our N-phase monitoring system. It shows your per panel generation, and this is our other system. We've got a hybrid system with 2 or 3 different components in it. It shows you the sort of data you can get from monitoring that's all available on these things and on computers these days. This is purely up there to show how the smarts work, using the available solar to charge batteries, charge your house. And there's a beautiful bell curve in winter, 49 kilowatt hours generated without the smarts turned on. That's the only reason it looks different to that one. This was our best day ever, 125.4 kilowatt hours on the 13th of December 2022. Fantastic day. We used a lot of energy in the morning to charge our battery, the car, and probably turned our hot water on and our underfloor heating too, because the feed-in tariff would have been negative, so we wanted to use a bit of power. In the afternoon, it all went to the grid. A diagnostic assessment for our battery 4 months ago. It says 2.1, so it shows you that the assessments from a diagnostic perspective for at different times of the year, but there's a lot more in that, so I won't go into it. And that was just a picture of a fire. I'm a bit of a perseverer, and I think anything can be done. We had a fire going at midnight, and it was in a puddle in the end because it was raining so hard. Now, just a quick rundown on Amber. Is anyone with Amber in the audience? Nobody. Well, anyway, it's a retailer for those who are switched on. I call myself a disruptor. This is disrupting the retailer norm that we are all faced with today. Everyone in this room, except for two of us, is faced with a standard retail situation with charges that are based on what they can get away with charging you. They'll bring you in on with lots of incentives and low rates, but as per the example that Adam talked about, if you don't do anything, it'll go up and you'll pay more over time. It's not like a virtual power plant because with Amber, we control where our energy goes. Amber only charge a fee for use of their system, and what we pay for electricity and what we get paid for putting energy back into the grid is the wholesale price. That if you remember back to one of Ty's slides showing the nighttime charges and then the daytime charges and the variations there, they're quite phenomenal. I think I've got a slide coming up. One day last month we made $212 in an hour. Do you hear that? $212 in an hour. Our battery is limited to a 5 kilowatt discharge. We were paid at the peak during that period, that spike, that was one of those energy spikes that Ty showed in his graph, we were paid $19, not 19 cents, but $19 a kilowatt hour. So that shows you how the system in the background that we're all subject to works, but with an organisation like Amber, you can take advantage of it. And I'll talk to you, if you want to, about the benefits and disbenefits of that later on. I already mentioned what our feed-in tariff average is. It's 16 cents for the last 3 months and something like 11 cents for the last 12 months. Last month it was 6 cents because there's a lot of wind, a lot of sun. The value for renewables was down. That's one of our days. Back in March, we earned $204, but just last month we earned it was $214 gross, but by the time we paid for our usage that day, it was a net of $212. And there's one of the examples of the price. There's a lot of pros and cons. I'll talk to you privately about the pros and cons of Amber. Now, who has solar at home? So a lot of people. So you're already there. You've asked the question about how I'm going to use energy and you've got a solar system. Who's got an EV? A good number. The number of EVs and the number of solar, well, it's 1 in 3 households for solar, and I was surprised to see James' stat about 30,000 EVs in the Endeavour network. Is that right? That's amazing. It shows you that they're all over the place. It's becoming more and more prevalent. But when you're investing in anything that goes on your roof, make sure your roof's up for it for a start, to make sure you make good decisions, get good equipment that's properly certified, because it's going to last 15 to 30 years on your roof. And I say 30 because there's a lot of solar systems that are still going strong. They're very small, they're very old tech, but they're still going strong 20, 30 years down the track. So our system on our roof that we upgraded to in 2021, probably see me out. So hopefully the people that move into our house when we move somewhere else will enjoy the benefit of that. So you've got to make sure your roof's up to it. Your warranty, all the installation aspects are really important to ensure you've got right. This little plug for Finn Peacock and Solar Quotes. This guy's been going for years. He certainly makes money out of running his website, but he keeps the bastards honest. If you go there and you get quotes, they're all by reputable retailers that recommend, and they're all 4.8 to 5 stars. So make sure you do it right if you haven't gone solar yet and you're thinking about doing it properly down the track. We've seen a few curves lately. A lot of them are Bell, and this is a classic one that we use for the SunCrowd program that shows the generation in the middle of the day from renewables. The usage patterns are morning and evening. The way we use energy will be tailored to the new system that's being delivered as we speak. And the traditional use energy at a single rate any time of the day is over. Use energy when it's cheap, when it suits your manufacturing, if you're a manufacturer, when it suits your usage in the household, is the way we're going. And as a number of people have already said today, storing that surplus that you might get off your roof in a battery, whether it be an EV. There'll be talks that WinZero and Council sponsor very soon that are all about vehicle to grid. Our power wall that's fixed under our house is 13.5 kilowatts. Our car is 60 kilowatts. We can plug our car in right now and run our house, but we'd void our warranty. But when the networks get worked with the governments as far as regulation goes and the manufacturers, it will become the norm for cars to be part of this stationary energy storage. And the way we use electricity is going to be different. Last slide is about a thing called a virtual energy network. Not a great one, and I haven't got time to go through the details of this, but we've got Aidan from Quantum NRG here, who's on a volunteer basis helping us deliver our virtual energy network program to our local community. We've got 27 participants at the moment. We're planning with the assistance of Deakin University to expand that to over 400 and bring in the vehicle to home, vehicle to grid aspect of that too. You can sign up, I can safely say that today, we've got room for more customers in our pilot. Not every time, sorry, but just about every time it comes up either on par or advantageous to switching to our virtual energy network. So if you go and see Aidan outside near the fossil off sign, he can talk to you through the benefits of a virtual energy network that gives the power to you as a generator, as a user. You can choose who you buy your electricity from, what you pay, and what you sell your electricity from if you're a generator, whether it comes from your solar panels or not too far down the track from your battery. You can work out who you sell it to. And one example is a local cafe is buying electricity from people in this room to run their cafe. The people in the room are benefiting, feeling good, supplying local energy to local business, and the local cafe is about $5,000 to $6,000 better off from our early assessment. So that's the last thing. If there's any questions, I don't know how much time we've got for questions, but obviously everyone's hanging out for one of those sausage sandwiches, and we've all been sitting here for a long time, so I don't know that we want to keep you here much longer. Thank you very much.